fell into the water and got bit, she's gonna have to die.
We are talking Mermaid Isle, also known as Mermaid Island, and this is written and directed by Jason Mills. There's a 2020 very low budget indie movie. I think from what I can tell, production actually started, or pre-production actually started way back in 2016. So, what's the story behind this one then? Okay, so it focuses on four friends who are going on a kind of hike in this woodland area, and one of the guys, there's two guys, two girls, and one of the guys wants to propose to his girlfriend at this kind of lake, and the other two are kind of the friends of these two. So they go to this lake, and there's all these signs there that say do not go into the lake, with no other detail than that. Inevitably, whilst this couple is talking about getting married, the other two start messing around, and the other guy pushes this kind of goth girl into the water, and something bites her, and she kind of turns into a mermaid over the next few hours. It's kind of like a zombie virus, I guess. And they don't really know what's going on. They kind of seek help from some locals, but the locals kind of know what's up. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss. So I've reviewed a few mermaid movies on here now, and this is just the latest, damn it. Alright, so this one, however, probably more than any of the others, is the most low budget. It's clearly somewhat even an amateur movie in some degrees. What works in this movie's favour? For the clearly low budget that it is, it's actually not badly photographed, I would say. I mean, sometimes with these low budget indies, the technical elements are rough. And this one, I think, actually does a fairly good job of that. I mean, everything's kind of like in frame. They kind of vary up the shots. You've got establishing shots, maybe a little too many establishing shots, to be honest. But for the most part, you know, I think it's reasonably well sort of put together in that respect. And even things like the kind of the sound mixing, which is the biggest issue sometimes with these very kind of low budget movies, is actually okay. So, you know, it's nothing incredible, but I think it's competently put together at the very least. Now, this is such a low budget movie, it clearly can't afford even rudimentary CGI. But that means they use practical stuff. Now, not that the mermaid is particularly kind of, you know, an impressive effect exactly. It's just someone with kind of one of these mermaid costumes swimming around. But it kind of looks like it's Menu. You know, when our goth girl turned into a mermaid, she's got the half body with the kind of the fish bottom half, and we see, you know, footage swimming around from underwater and stuff. It's alright. I don't think it's too bad. You know, they've done a reasonable job with the budget there, and it's quite fun having a goth mermaid, I have to say. And I kind of, in a way, like the idea that they treat this a little bit like a zombie virus. I mean, it works the same, but rather than turning into a zombie, you turn into a mermaid. I mean, other than that, it's essentially the same. I mean, there's no reason why you would necessarily turn into a half fish. It doesn't really kind of quite make sense if you think about it. Not that zombies are obviously all that sense, but they're at least a little bit more sensible than the biting and turning into a mermaid. But whatever, that's what it works as. So yeah, but it's an interesting spin on the mermaid idea, at least, and at least there is some attempt here at kind of an original idea. The movie is very short. It's about an hour and 10-15 minutes, something like that. And a good 10 minutes is like an epilogue, which has clearly been added on later to pad out the running time. But it does mean that kind of the main storyline is doesn't drag too much, to be honest. But there's maybe a reason for that, which I'll come on to. And so let's talk about the other side of the coin here. What maybe doesn't work? Now, again, this is a very low budget film. So if you are wanting a polished product, there are other mermaid movies that do this with a higher production value. So there's that. Possibly the biggest complaint here, I would say, is the acting isn't good, and I think the direction that the actors have been given also isn't very good. So we have to let me give you an example of what I mean. So the guy, our protagonist, our group of friends, have no idea about what is going on. So after their goth girlfriend is bitten, she's just kind of ill. So they take her to this one and only kind of like house, and there's like an old woman there. Now the goth girl ends up biting the old woman, and she kind of knows what's the jig. She doesn't actually explain anything. She just kind of like goes, "Oh, we're all gonna die now," but doesn't actually give any details. So no one's knows what's going on at that point. But then she just commits suicide. And just the kind of the blasé, nonchalant attitude where you would just go into someone's house and the owner then commits suicide by blowing their brains out right in front of you. You would have a little bit more of a reaction. But I think it's partially down to the actors, but partially down to the direction as well. The direction clearly wasn't given to these actors to react in a certain way, or if it was, it should have been redone. So I think the kind of the blame here in regards to the acting lies on both the actors and the director, because I feel both have dropped the ball in that respect. So the acting isn't particularly strong. So let's talk about the story. There really isn't much of one, to be honest. I mean, hence why this movie is quite short, because there's not a lot of story in it. It's just 4 people go into the woods and they're attacked, and then that's kind of it, really. They just kind of have the effects of that attack. There's not really any other story involved here. I mean, we've got these we've got the old woman and her son, but I really felt like that didn't amount to very much. So there's not a lot of story in this film. So, you know, it's more of a kind of like a situation that happens. It's one of those examples where this is like a short which has been expanded into a feature length. They've added like a 10-minute sequence at the end with completely different characters to clearly pad the running time out a little bit. But yeah, there's not really any narrative here. And let's talk about the mermaid. Not on screen very much. Let me just say, the mermaid, or a mermaid, is probably on screen for less than 90 seconds in the entire movie. So not a lot of mermaid action. And then the inciting incident. So we have this goth girl gets pushed in the water and something bites her, but she's only in like maybe a foot of water. So it's not like another mermaid. They would have seen her. You would have seen a mermaid get that close to you in that kind of shallower water. So I presume that there's something else, like some sort of parasite in the water that turns humans into mermaids. But it's never addressed. You don't really know what the actual situation is. They make out like it's quite a big bite. We never really see it properly, which would lead you to believe that there's something bigger in the water. But like I said, it's literally a foot of water, probably less than that if I'm honest. And yet no one sees anything in like human shape or that big in the water. So it's just kind of silly. And as I say, the actual story it lasts about an hour, and then we have this extended epilogue sequence which is clearly filmed at a different time because it's snowing in that. It does say 3 months later or something, but it just feels really tacked on. It doesn't really feel like it adds to the story, to be honest. And it just, for like an epilogue, it's like, I don't need a 10-minute epilogue with these random characters that we've not seen before. So yeah, it's rough, this one. It's obviously probably made for less than $1,000, I would guess. So probably a starting point, I would suggest, for these kind of Jason Mills and his team. But yeah, there's better ones, to be honest, but I think this needed a little bit more thought behind it, to be honest with you, a little bit more context, a little bit more direction and things. There you go. It's a 3 out of 10 for me, gotta be honest. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.